Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is where you get edified with yours truly, Dr. Eddie. How you doing? How you living? How's it going? I hope you're doing well, and I hope you are connected with me online in my social circle: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and we don't stop at Eddie Connor Jr. Come on, take your phone out, scroll, open the app, holla at your boy, connect with me. All right, let's do that. Then, of course, as well, I want you to make sure that you join my academy where we focus on faith, identity, success, relationships, financial insight, speaker training, much more. Don't you think you could use that? Don't you think you could employ much of the strategies that we talk about in our sessions and our master classes and be in a network with people who understand that their network determines their net worth? They're not there to compete. They want to collaborate, right? They don't want to pull anything from you. They want to push you into the greatness and the destiny that's already within you. I want you to join it. Go to DrEddieCacademy.com to be a part of my online community. Listen, let's get into it. I want to talk about a topic. Maybe you've heard of it, but it's called imposter syndrome. Didn't always know about it. Maybe you didn't either, but the whole aspect of imposter syndrome is self-doubt. It's feeling like a fraud. It's feeling like a phony, even if you have been a high achiever. And I think for many of us, we have to really take decisive steps and make a decision to ensure that our next move is our best move, right? There's a lot of things that we are so afraid to do that's really impeding our progress towards our destiny because we're standing in the way of our purpose. I want to share in regard to imposter syndrome. There's 5 types of imposter syndrome. I'm not going to go all deep into it, but it's available for you to check out. One specifically is a perfectionist. Then you got the Superman, Superwoman complex. You got the expert. You got the natural genius. You got the soloist. Many times we fall into not just one of these categories. We fall into a multiplicity of these categories, right? Because we think everything has to be perfect before we start. But hear me, things will get perfect when you begin to do it. You're waiting on things to be perfect before you start, but it can't be perfect until you start. See, time doesn't wait on the perfect you. So why are you waiting on the perfect time? The time is now. With all of the gifts that you have, with all the talent that you have, with all the intangibles, with all the skill, with all the vision that you have, you're allowing people's opinions to become your prison. You're doing yourself a disservice because you're wondering, well, what will so-and-so say about this? What will such and such say about that? Listen, the people are going to talk whether you do something or you don't. They're going to talk whether you succeed or you fail. You might as well succeed and let them keep on talking, right? And let them be your free press release for somebody to be inquisitive about you, somebody to Google your name, for somebody to find out about you and say, hey, this is just a hater over here. Let me invest into this person because they have clear direction. They have clear vision, right? Success is not going to be something that's momentary. I heard Phil Jackson say, you're only a success at the time that you do and complete a successful act. Essentially, you have to keep doing it again, right? Can you be a person who's dedicated, not just motivated? Motivation comes and goes, but dedication is the fact I'm going to push myself to press through this, to complete this task, even though I don't feel like it. And a lot of times we're not moving in determination. We're moving in procrastination. Look at you. Look at where you are in this year. The same promises that you made last year, you're still making again this year. Things that you were supposed to do 5 years ago, you still have not stepped out to do it now. Why? What's holding you back? What's stopping you? You can't keep blaming your past. You can't keep blaming other people. You can't say that, you're in a place of a heartbreak. You got to use that negative steam to power your dream. You got to go for it. Hear me. So many times we're not forsaking the familiar. We're embracing the familiar because we're so comfortable with being comfortable. versus getting to a place to where we have to say, I'm going to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I'm going to get uncomfortable with being comfortable. The most dangerous place that you can be in life is not when you're walking on waters, when you're staying in the boat. In the boat is the shallow end. In the boat is the shallow-minded people. In the boat is the shallow-minded relationships. In the boat are the people just who want to stop you from being a Peter to walk on water because Jesus told you to come. They're holding on to your coat. They're holding on to your scarf. They're holding on to your pant leg. Right? They're pulling at your leg. No. Don't leave us. Right? Because a lot of times those individuals are intimidated. If you ever get ahead of me, then it's going to expose my frailty. Whoever you intimidate is who you will eliminate. You got to be an eagle sometime. You got to get out the chicken coop. You got to soar on wings as an eagle. If you spread your wings, you will win. But you have to take the decisive step to do something different. It's about doing something different. It's going to be the same old year for you. It's going to be the same old day for you. It's going to be the same old month for you if you keep doing the same old thing. Well, listen, I know you got a 9 to 5, but what's your 7 to 11? A job is what you're paid for, but your purpose is what you're made for. I don't care if you're making $80,000, $100,000, $1 million a year, a couple million a year. You're never really going to be satisfied until you're doing what fulfills you. Until you do what is purpose driven. Until you do what you were gifted to do. Are you following me? Because the thing is that so many times we're gifted, but we never open the package. And then as a result of it, we wind up being the right gift at the wrong address. And our package is in the hands of the wrong people who don't know how to do anything with the gift that we have because they don't value not just us, but themselves. So they devalue us. And now we feel bad about ourselves because somebody mishandled us. Don't mishandle your purpose in this season. Hear me clearly, right? That whole aspect of the imposter syndrome, you got to push past that. You got to push past that. You got to shake the familiar off. You got to shake the fear off. You got to embrace the fear and do it anyway. The only thing to fear is fear itself. What does Scripture say? Scripture said in Joshua chapter 1, verse 8, be strong and of a good courage. Have not I commanded you to be strong and of a good courage? A lot of times we're reading Scripture and we're reading it as what, how, when, where, but you forget the why. Why is he telling me to be strong and of a good courage? In the first chapter of Joshua, after Moses had died, Moses was the GOAT. Moses was the leader. Moses was the one who led at least 1 million people out of Egypt across the Red Sea. Moses was the one who brought the 10 commandments down. Moses was that guy. Now Joshua has to step in Moses' shoes. Imagine that. Every decision that Joshua makes, people like, well, I don't think Moses would have done that. Right? The paralysis by analysis, the analysis by paralysis. Much less the imposter syndrome that Joshua was feeling. But did he think about the imposter syndrome that Moses had? Moses was a stutterer. Moses was a murderer. God still used him. Timothy was timid in Scripture. Jeremiah was young, was only 17. Jonah ran, found himself in the belly of a whale. Peter denied the Lord 3 times. Right? David was an adulterer, and he committed a murderous act, putting Bathsheba's husband Uriah on the front line. Think about many of the women in Scripture. Dealt with imposter syndrome. Wasn't called that at that date, but it was a fear. It was a self-doubt. Paul, formerly known as Saul, persecutor of the church. People doubted who he was and if he really had a conversion. Wound up writing 75% of the New Testament, more books than any of the disciples who actually walked with Jesus. You got to push past your stumbling blocks and turn it into a stepping stone. You got to stop worrying about what everybody else is doing. I don't care if everybody does what you do. They can't do it like you do it. Nobody can beat you being you. Look at your unique ability. Embrace your authenticity. Embrace your authority. Walk boldly in it. This is your season to do it. And if you're going to do it, you got to do it in 3 ways. Number one, you got to know that you're competent. If you're going to launch out with this vision, it's got to be not an if, it's got to be a when. Now is the time. You got to understand that you have a level of competence. What do I mean by competence? You have prior knowledge. You have an understanding. You have a unique perspective to where you can find your specific niche, your target, and go for it. What are you most knowledgeable about? Then as a result of you having the knowledge is meaningless if it's not applied. Now that you have the knowledge base, now that you've defined what that knowledge base is, what's stopping you from taking ownership? What's stopping you from talking about it? What's stopping you from working on it? You got to mute the mumblers, and you got to define who is it that you are called to serve. What problem will you solve? Dr. Miles Monroe said, every problem is a business. You ought to drive through your neighborhood looking for the problems. You ought to be at your job looking for the problems. You ought to not allow social media to use you. You ought to literally use it and see what the problems are to find a resolution to be able to solve that problem. You got to understand that you're competent. Based upon your competency, why are you now afraid? Stop looking at your inadequacies. Oh, I'm looking at my size. I'm looking at it whether I'm a small size, I'm a mid size, I'm a large size. I don't like the sound of my voice. I don't like how long or short my hair is. I don't like my skin complexion. You're thinking about all of these aspects which now become psychological prison bars that keep you trapped versus release you to go for it. You got to shake off the fear. You got to not allow people's perception to become your prison. You got to move past insecurity. You got to understand this. God doesn't just call qualified people, but he qualifies those that he calls. As you're walking with it, he's qualifying you. Right? But here's what we do. We ignore God when he calls us. Nah, I'm not. You can't choose me. If you think about what I used to do, what I used to be, yeah, I'm ex this, but hear me, you're an example of what God can do. Wondering what everybody's going to say. See, we so focused on what everybody else is going to think about us, what everybody else is going to say about us. When was the last time you said, I'm wondering what God's going to say about me? I would just want to hear, well done. Well done, thy good and faithful servant. Come on in, enter into the joy of the Lord. Right? You got to have that competence, knowing that you don't have to compete. See, a lot of times we don't think about competence. We think about competing. You're basing who you are off of somebody else, when the only competition is the one staring you in the mirror. You versus you. Being competent. The competence should now lead to confidence. Being confident in this very thing, that he that hath begun a good work in you shall perform it. Right? You listen, belief in yourself helps you to win before the race begins. You got to have that self-confidence. You got to muster that up. You got to speak to yourself. You got to encourage yourself. Your words create your world. What you speak into the atmosphere will appear. Right? What you say, you will eventually see. Good, bad, ugly, otherwise. The reason you haven't succeeded is because you keep saying you're a failure. The reason you can't is because you keep saying what you can't do. Henry Ford said, whether you say you can or you can't, you're still right. You got to right those wrongs. What stops you from believing in yourself? Oftentimes, the greatest enemy is the inner me. We're the ones who get in our own way. Well, I'm waiting on God. You ain't waiting on God. He's waiting on you. He already completed the work. Well, I understand the assignment. Now, everybody's saying that. But here's the real question. What are you doing to complete the assignment? Listen, if I could just understand the assignment all through high school, I would have been graduated. No, I had to complete the assignment. And my guidance counselor knew my favorite two classes in school were gym and lunch. Love to chase the girls in gym and then sit down and eat with them at lunch. I knew the assignment, but a lot of times I wasn't completing the assignment, and my grades were indicative of that. What are you doing to complete the assignment and walk boldly and confidently in who it is that you were created to be? You got to know who you are. You can't know who you are until you know whose you are. You got to know what you want out of life. You got to know where you're going. You got to know the steps of what it's going to take to get there. You also got to know and decide who you want coming with you on the journey. If you don't know what you want, somebody's going to decide what you get. And generally it's going to be what you don't want. But how do you know what you don't want if you don't know what you do want? Are you confused yet? So is the person who doesn't know what they don't want, much less what they do want. You got to make a decision, not operate from a place of deficit because of comparison and competition, but you got to co-labor. You got to collaborate with what God gave you and then also the people that he's going to place into your life. The battle is won or lost in your mind. Doesn't matter how much competence you have. If you're not confident enough, you can't stand up in a room of fifth graders and express yourself. When they ask you, Miss or Mr. So-and-so, what's 2 + 2? You so shaking in your boots and you sweating, arms are sweaty, palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. Right? You having an 8-mile M&M experience to where you saying 5 because you think about all the fifth graders that's staring you in the face and now they laugh you up out the room. You have the competence, but confidence helps you to communicate it clearly. Can you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Right? This is rush hour 4 right here. I got to rush you through this. Competence, confidence, and hear me, consistency. Last but not least, consistency. Listen to me. You will never be believable until you're consistent. You'll never be believable. For you to be great at anything, Malcolm Gladwell said it takes at least 10,000 hours in his book Outliers. Right? And if you're not going to put that in, you're lying to yourself. You're not going to put that work in. You're the biggest liar to yourself. 10,000 hours is literally a minimum of 5 years, 5 to 7 years at minimum. Your surgeons put in 10,000 hours. At least we hope so. Right? The greatest entertainers that you can think of have put in at least 10,000 hours. Your favorite sports athlete has put in at least 10,000 hours. Your favorite author, your favorite singer, anybody who you can think of who is at the top of their game in any specific arena and aspect of life has put in the time, the sweat equity, the labor. Success doesn't care about your excuses. Success is only focused on the results. Are you willing to put in the time? You're not tired, you're just uninspired. Let me say that twice because it's oh so nice. A lot of us, we're not tired, we're just uninspired. Right? And we're consistently inconsistent. Can you be committed to your commitment? Can you hold yourself accountable? I need me an accountability partner. Can you be the accountability partner to you first? I don't feel like it, but sometimes the greatest blessing comes from what you don't feel like doing. Consistency. What are you dedicated to doing over and over and over again? Nobody's going to take you seriously if you're not consistent. Listen, if I only upload 1 video a month, does that seem to be consistent to you? I need to be coming to you multiple times a week, if not day to day, communicating a message, having and using my competence, communicating confidently and consistently for you to take me seriously as a voice of choice, right? Listen, to the sisters who are watching, if a man proposes to you that you've been dating sometime or whatever the case may be, he pops the question, will you be my wife? He gives you the ring. He gives you the ring on a Friday. You don't hear from him Saturday. You call him, no response. You text him, haven't heard from him Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. All of a sudden, it's been over a week and he calls you the following Sunday. You trying to put two and two together. This don't seem right. You propose to me one week and I don't hear from you till the next week. What in the world is going on with you? He's not consistent. And in your estimation, he's not believable. Because you got me going in circles all around and around and around. Up one day on a high from getting a ring. Then the next moment I don't hear anything. From a ring to nothing. You don't even ring my line. I would that you would at least ring the phone after you give me the ring. You see, he's not believable because he's inconsistent. Consistently inconsistent. Doesn't bring you any forward progress. It's destructive. It's deleterious. What is preventing you from being committed to your commitment? Come on, I want you to really hold yourself accountable right through here. Up in here, up in here. What is preventing you from being committed to your commitment? Well, I'm trying. Listen, the difference between try and triumph is that little oomph. That little oomph makes a big difference. You have to push yourself. You got to pursue the purpose of what's already on the inside of you. You got to go for it. You got to believe. You got to stop telling yourself that you're not qualified. God already qualified you. He just wants you to take a leap of faith out of that imposter syndrome, out of that self-doubt, out of that negativity. And the reason I can talk so passionately and ebulliently about it is because I dealt with it for years. Come on, man. I heard somebody say, a friend of mine was talking to a very famous singer on the phone. He said, man, how were you able to write this hit? I can't stop listening to this song over and over again. And the guy said, man, for me to write a hit, I had to first get hit. For me to tell you this, I had to first internalize it in my heart. I had to first get hit to deliver the hit. Right? And so many times life was hitting me, but I wasn't hitting back. Right? Life was knocking me down, but I wasn't fighting back. Many of you may know my story, overcoming stage 4 cancer. Not believing that I was going to be able to make it, the self-doubt. And then you think about the survivor's guilt. When I lost my best friend at the age of 7 to cancer, when I saw my aunt die of cancer, when I saw kids who were in the same cancer center as me, they stopped coming. And you know what that means. See them, they're not coming no more because they died. They went on. Dealt with all types of negativity in my life. Doubting myself. My own biological father never visited me one day in the hospital. When he was present prior to my parents' divorce, he was present physically, but absent mentally, socially, emotionally. Presently absent. Dealing with all of that. Raised by a single mom. You know, lacking confidence as a kid, struggling with depression, social isolation, because I wasn't able to go to school due to fighting cancer. Told, as I said before, that I'd never go to college by a guidance counselor who didn't know I offer any guidance nor counseling. Then when I went to college, I almost dropped out due to a lack of money. It was tough times. All the times why I talked myself out of what God wanted me to step into. And everything I'm doing now is not what I even wanted to do. The greatest blessing comes from doing what I didn't feel like doing. Writing my first book with $1 and a dream to my name in a dorm room. I didn't feel like writing it. Wrote it because I said this is going to be a gift to my mom for helping me to overcome. But you got to push yourself. You got to believe. I'm the least likely, but the least likely can do the most mighty. You got to go for it. You got to believe. You got to keep succeeding. You got to keep striving. You got to recognize you got competence. You got confidence. And you also have the whole aspect of consistency. You got to go for it. Be consistently consistent and committed to your commitment. Listen, I'm out of time, but I'm not out of truth. I really hope that you took something from this today. I just want you to like. I want you to comment. I want you to subscribe. I want you to let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Share the video. Join the Academy, DrEddieCacademy.com. Follow me. Connect with me on social media as well at Eddie Connor Jr. Listen, let's spread the love. Let's share the love. You know I'm here to empower you, to encourage you, to enrich you, and to for sure edify you. Peace and love. Dr. Eddie, until next time.